Hi, welcome back to the shop. Sorry about that, very loud. Today I will be starting working on Mehrunes Razor. Mehrunes Razor, I think it is. It's another Skyrim dagger, and I'm going to be making it out of about that much of this leaf spring. That's the hope, anyway. I've been here for quite a bit. I did a little bit of work. I made a couple little things. I'll show you. Well, I made two little things. I've worked on this, sharpened this little knife. It's really fun. Bam. I also resharpened our kitchen knife because it was a little funky and I wanted to make sure it was sharp for my girlfriend because she literally is using it. And then I made what apparently is like a half knife. I was trying to make another knife for my girlfriend because she wanted one that like she actually wouldn't hit her knuckles on when she's using. But I messed it up, so I got to make a new one. Anyway, the whole point of this project, this video rather, is the start of Mehrunes Razor. Mehrunes Razor. I got to get it right. Mehrunes Razor. So I'm going to chop this piece up. I'm going to get it in the forge. We're going to start working on it with power hammer. In the description of the blade, it says it uses a dark metal insert to give that black central piece. I can't and probably won't be doing that. What I will do is probably like stain it or like oil it. So that when I'll heat it up, I'll oil it, and then from that point on, it'll be dark in the middle, and then I'll grind the outside to be like shiny. But that's effectively the plan with that part of it. Aside from that, we're looking at about a 13 millimeter handle, a 26 millimeter blade. I'm going to go between 26 and like 30, I think, for millimeters. That's between like 8 and 9 inches for you Americans. Handle will be 13 to 14, and then eventually it's going to be sold off to help fund sending this to Thick 44 of Neves Gaming. So this, if you heard me talk about it before in the Iron Dagger video, this is the Wyvern King sword. Hold on a second. This is the Wyvern King sword. I am making this for Thick 44 because he has, medical issues, a brain tumor, and medical bills and all that kind of stuff. And in the last year, I fell in love with Neves Gaming. So when I found out that Thick had a brain tumor, I was like, cool, I'm going to make him a sword. I didn't think about the logistics of getting him the sword. So when I sent Jeremy the Iron Dagger, I was like, oh, getting a blade across the board is a pain in the ass. I need two things, money and guile. I have guile. I don't have money. So I'm going to basically make Mehrunes Razor and then raffle it off to fund sending this to Thick 44. It's still a process, still a work in process rather. I'll kind of do little updates here and there as we go through other videos and stuff. I'm hoping to have this done by the end of February. It's going to be dope when it's done though. Sorry, I got to stop swearing so much. I also apologize for the messy shop. We've had students in and I just haven't had time to clean the place up yet. I'm not teaching them. Logan's teaching them. I don't know anything yet. I'm just doing stuff. So now you can't see this, I apologize. But the shop is very messy. What I'm going to be doing here is effectively, I'll use this side of it. I'm just going to mark a straight line as roughly as I can using the chalk. Well, it's soapstone, but anyway. And then, using that, I will cut this chunk off. Now, before I turn the forge on, I want to do a little bit more talking because it's going to get loud and you probably won't be able to hear me. Anyways, this is about the same amount of material I used to make the Iron Dagger. So it's way too much that I need, but I'm going to use it because I would like to have excess material for a project that requires this kind of precision. If it was just a normal knife, something like this, I would reduce it quite a bit. Like, you could probably use maybe a third of this to make a knife like that. Maybe a half. But the excess material would be good because I can grind out whatever I need to while also not fearing having not enough material. I'd rather have more than not enough. And of course, we're basically out of propane. So, I'll do it tomorrow.
The next day.
The next day.
I've done a bit of work, as you saw. It is now the next day, and I have power hammered out the tang of this piece, which is great, because now I actually have something I can physically properly hold on to with some tongs and put it back under the power hammer. The way I was using it before worked. I wasn't comfortable with it. I need a better pair of tongs to work under the power hammer when it's a big block like it started with. But now that I have the tang, I can take a pair of wolf jaw tongs and simply socket that in, and now it's secure and away from my body. So I'm going to turn the forge back on, heat this part up, well, heat the whole thing up, and I'm going to draw this big chunky out to about here to form the general shape of the blade. So that's the big goal for today in this episode, is basically we're going to be forging out the generic shape of the blade without getting too deep into edge geometry and having to put that black bit in the middle. We're just going to get a general preform done today. All right, now that the forge is lit, let's put her in. Okay, so according to my measurements, the blade length should be between 24 and 26 centimeters, which roughly translates to just about 10 and a quarter to 9.5 inches for my American viewers. Also, me being who I am, I always will confuse millimeter and centimeter for the next little while. My brain just isn't working right now. Alright, so I've turned the forge off for a second. I apologize for the weird angle, but I need you to be able to see this. These white lines, this one and this one, represent our measurements, 26, 24, and 13. Now, the blade is not fully forged yet. So it's super thin. Well, I say super thin. It's thin from the forging, which is great. But you can see the fish lips forming at the tip here. Doesn't matter. I'm going to zip those off with a zip disc. And then when I go to actually forge it down to tip, it's going to give a lot extra length. So we're good on length. I know you can't see my eyes, but you can see the piece, which is what's important. So, at the moment, we're sitting at roughly 24 centimeters, I say millimeters, 24 centimeters, which is, for the Americans, just about 9.5 inches. And for the tang section, which is kind of varying right now, it's roughly, that's more than 13. That's like 15, 16 centimeters, which, again, for the Americans, is 6 to 6.5 inches. So, ish. Everything's an ish, especially with a project like this. So I'm going to let this cool down. I'm going to zip the tip off, and then turn the forge back on, forge the tip in. Here's the thing. I'm going to pick you up now because I can. The actual blade does, actually, you know, I can draw it. All right, so this is very, very rough. You know, just about the length we need. This is roughly what the blade looks like. It's got kind of this arrowhead shape to it. So all of this mass along the edge here, let me get the piece. So looking at the piece next to the drawing is not accurate. The piece is what the width is going to be. So what we're looking at here is all of this along the edge is going to extend and go out. So we're actually looking at a much longer tip than I was expecting, but it'll be fat at the bottom here. There'll be the little divots to go in to form the biddies, but I'm probably going to, if I can, put it under the full learning dies, try and drive out the sides just a little bit either end to be able to create these. But generally we're in the right ballpark, so we're good. A lot of what I do when I make stuff like this is ifs, ands, or buts, and maybes, and sometimes is in a lot of like playing around with things. When I make stuff like, it's cool, this, which is my girlfriend's kitchen knife I just forged today, this was just, let's see what happens. I didn't have any plan, any measurements, it was, let's see what happens. So this is what came out of that. For a project like this, for recreating a video game item or a pop culture weapon or anything, it's a lot of near enoughs. So for me, this piece, this billet right now, is near enough to what I need it to be. So, and I know the drawing I did is very, very big, but if you look at a picture, I'll put it up here-ish, you'll see that the actual blade isn't that thick. It's a very like thin, needly, almost kind of dagger blade, which I've made big ones in the past, and I've also made little ones in the past. So being able to work with a shape like this isn't going to be that difficult. Getting those like finer little details in, that's going to be a pain, but that's part of doing this. All right, so what I've done here is I've drawn in where the little like in grooves are going to be. I may need to widen this just by about, I don't know, 2-3 centimeters. That should be about enough. But first, we're going to throw this in a vice grip and zip off that fish lip tip. All right, so where we're sitting now, I somehow managed to forge the tip without creating fish lips. Don't ask me how, I don't know. I just did. I'll review the footage and see what I did differently. But where we are right now is I have forged the tip and I've started to forge like the actual blade shape. So it's got a bit of that like spear-like arrowhead style dive to it right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm noticing there's like a bit of like a bump and then the blade. So I'm gonna try and shift the material over. How to do that, I'm not entirely sure. I might just try and like actively drag the material, I say drag, move the material over to like fill in that gap. Or I can push the material that's like bumped out back in. Either way, I gotta fix it so it looks kind of right, and then I think I'll be done for the day. So I don't know if you can see it, it's very bright, very hot. Right here, there's a dip that kind of comes out and then in. We need to extend this over, so we're just gonna kind of so bad now. Okay, so I think that'll do it for the end of day one on Mehrunes Razor. We've gotten to a good position. We've gotten farther than I thought we would today, but here we are. So magically, like I said, I managed to forge the tip without creating fish lips. It's not like pointy, but it can get pointy. This has also increased the length by, actually let me double check that. So where we're sitting right now, it's raised it by about a centimeter, which isn't bad. We still have to bring a lot of this meat down to create that kind of arrowhead style shape, which is fine. That'll take time, but we can get that done next time. So we're looking at right around our sweet spot, 26, 25 centimeters. It's fat enough in the bottom here to create those shapes. I have to fix the tang here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a lot, there's a lot steep groove here, or steep dive here, and not such a big one up here. I'm gonna fix that and kind of shift the whole tang down a little bit next time. Outside that, I just want to mention, because a lot of people might look at this and go, oh, that's really thin to create Mehrunes Razor from Skyrim. Because if you look at the models in most video games, they're thick. Like, they are very, very, very thick. I'm trying to find an example. Actually, this is a good one. An Uruk-hai longsword. Now, this is thinner than I think the movie props were, which is great. But it's also still relatively thick. It's basically just a leaf spring he stretched out. This is still too thick for, like, real life. Most video games model their weapons like a good inch thick, which in a video game is necessary because you can't have a model too thin or else you can't see it in certain angles. I know, I work in game development, I've studied game development, I used to be an animator, so I know how 3D models work. I'm trying to bring those 3D models into reality by making them as realistic as possible while still maintaining their fantastical features. So this one, for example, is going to be thinner than it should be in the game, and it won't have like that little bit of a recess where they're supposed to be for the metal insert. So things like that won't really show, but we will find a way to make them displayed, if that makes sense. So if there's something fantastical, like let's say the Crucible Sword from Doom, which is on my to-do list, that's a big energy blade with a lot of detail work. I'm gonna make that one day, but I'm gonna make it in the style of a real-world sword. So it's going to be made of metal, it's going to have engraved runes, and it's going to be made out of, you know, the sword, the tang, the guard, the handle, the pommel, everything is going to be its own individual piece put together. So it won't look exactly like the video game model, but it will work in a realistic setting. Actually, it might be about as thick as this, like width-wise. I would bring this up a bit and out, but realistically, this is almost to where I would make it, except it would be thinner. On that note, I gotta go because it is very late, it's almost pitch black outside, and I have to get home to get dinner. Peace.